Um, where the heck am I? Hey, it's Doug with Backcountry Pilgrim, a channel all about hiking, camping, backpacking, and the gear that goes with it. Today I am up in Red Hills, California, doing a somewhat foggy hike through a somewhat desert area. It's been very strange, but this has been an amazing trail to try out my orienteering skills because this is one of the craziest trails I've ever been on. It is like a maze out here. Not only does the main trail split numerous times, but there are tons of trails, side trails, use trails. It seems like every 60 seconds, I'm having to make a decision about what direction to go. Now, some people would say you need to bring a map and a compass, and I don't disagree. However, out here, it's not going to be as helpful as you might think. So today, I'm going to talk about the benefit of a GPS over a map and compass, and why you should still carry both. Now, this is not going to be a video on how to use GPS or how to use a map and compass for orienteering, but rather it is just going to be a series of tips and things that I've noticed while using both to kind of give you some idea of the pluses and minuses of each system. Just the right number of people out here today. 0. I'm gonna take the steep route first, get it over with while it's early, and I'm fresh and it's cool out here. I was warned that there are a lot of side trails out here. You can see even from here, there's another one. Side trail, main trail, side trail. Wow. So the description of the trail is right. There are just little side trails and use trails all along here. In fact, there's a side trail to a side trail. So far, going clockwise, the main trail has been pretty obvious though. It's the one full of rocks. So according to the GPS, I have not diverged too far yet. And although there are just tons of these little use trails out here, the main one seems to be pretty clear. So most hikers are going to tell you that you should carry a map and compass. And I agree. I remember hiking in the days before GPS, and I did get myself out of a situation or two by being able to read a map and a compass and figure out where I was. But you've also got to be realistic. Suppose that I was lost right here. I've got several hills, some of them just basically bumpy ridges. And sure, if I had a really good topographical map, I might be able to triangulate my position and get some idea of where I'm going back to the car. However, in an area where there are literally side, use, and divergent trails every couple steps, looking at a map, looking at my compass, and trying to figure out exactly where I am is going to be practically impossible unless I am super good at judging distance. So the important thing on a hike like this is to keep your bearings, keep in mind where you've been so that you can walk back even if you don't know exactly where the trail is. So for example, I know that highest hill out there is something that I skirted along the bottom of on the western side, and I didn't go over the top of that little mound, so that means that that V shape right there is where my car is. Now, the fact that I can see the trail I'm on and another trail next to it and a use trail connecting to another trail next to it and 3 trails right here shouldn't be of huge concern. If you check out your map before you get out on a trail and you have a general idea of where you're going, things like this shouldn't bother you too much. I'm supposed to be coming up to a right fork. We've got 2 trails here and a trail sign. But unfortunately, Gaia does not list the names of any of these trails. So, overlook. All right, so that's the incoming trail from the place where I turned right back there, which means the other side should still be the soap route, and it is. So, in not too long, I should come to a right fork, but it shouldn't just be one of these loop kind of things. It should actually go onto a brand new trail, probably one that is fairly clear compared to some of these use trails and side trails that just kind of go off into nowhere. Some of these trails are probably runoff trails. I know there are a lot of small rocky creeks out here when it's raining, and so people probably go around certain parts and create these extra trails. In fact, that's probably one right there. Fun little trail out here. Definitely some ankle busters. Boots are a good idea. So one thing I like to try to do when I am looking at the map is look at what's going to happen next. It looks like I'm going to go over about 3 contour lines, and then I should come to a dead end, and I know that I'm going to want to go left. I can also tell that it won't really matter whether I go left or right because I'm coming up to a big loop. But because I'd rather get my climbing done right here, get up to the top of the ridge now, I'm going to go left at the next big intersection. Don't like to go down when I'm trying to go up. So, oops. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Okay, so on this trail, follow the rocks. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, this place is wild with trails everywhere. All right, according to the GPS, should be coming to the next trail juncture very soon. I know from the topographics that I don't want to be going straight up that mountain, but I should be going to the left of it. So I expect to see this trail soon. That is probably it right there. It's interesting that none of these creeks are on the map. It's pretty obvious this is what they are. This did not form by people walking on it. Another thing I like to do is that when I know that I am at a crucial juncture, like the end of this loop, and I don't want to miss it, is I'll just stop and turn around. I should be coming out here. So what I want to do is just get an idea of what this view is, kind of lock this into my memory. There's the soap route, trail marker, and I'm going to want to go this way across the White Rock Dry Creek. So that should help me on my way back in case I'm tired, maybe disoriented, the light changes, what have you. When I see that area, hopefully it will trigger something in my memory, and that will help if it's dark or foggy or I'm out of it for some reason, because as you can see, as with this entire trip, the fog is kind of rolling in, so there's no telling what's going to happen by the time I'm done with this loop. Another thing that I find is important to do is to avoid getting trail suck. Trail suck happens when instead of looking down at your feet once in a while to make sure you're not going to trip on something, you end up hiking like this. Whoa! When it comes to hiking, if you don't look around occasionally, number one, you're missing out on the reason you probably came out in the first place, which is to see cool stuff. But the other problem is you're not learning the lay of the land. And so if you do find yourself confused about what trail to take, it's harder to figure out where you are. So here's the uphill I saw on the map. Whew! kind of a big hill. It's been a while since I've done some elevation change. So I can see from the GPS that I've got a bit more climbing to do. And then I should be getting up on top of that ridge up there, right along here. Like most hiking gear, there are pluses and minuses to just about everything. One big plus with a GPS is its scalability. Because you are able to electronically zoom in and zoom out, it is possible to see a lot of detail that you might have missed on a map. But there are two challenges that come with this. Number one, part of that scalability doesn't simply change how much of the map you can see, but it also usually adjusts the contour lines on a topographic map. And what that means is that if you zoom out too far, you're going to collapse a bunch of those lines into singles, and what could be a fairly steep hill might look like a fairly flat meadow. Another issue is judging distance. If you're trying to use your GPS to see about how fast you can expect to complete a trail, and you are maybe taking screenshots of you at different points and looking at the timestamp and that sort of thing, that's all fine unless you change your view. And if you zoom out too far, you might walk for 5 minutes and it might appear that you didn't go anywhere. Or if you zoom in a lot, it could look like you've covered a ton of ground when you really haven't. So for example, I just went from here to here in about 10 minutes. So unless you can see the entire map on your device, and you keep it at exactly the same zoom level the whole time, you're not going to have a very easy time judging how fast you're moving along the trail. Much of your ability to guess where you are on a map based on how long you've been hiking and the kind of terrain you've been on is only going to come with experience. The more you hike, the more you can take a look at a trail and say, all right, given that elevation and that distance, I'm probably looking at 4 hours. Knowing about how fast you hike is critical to figuring out where you are on a trail if you have not been paying attention. I am currently walking about 2 miles an hour. So I know that about every 15 minutes, I'm gonna go a half mile. Now I also have a pretty good sense of time. So when I'm hiking, I can usually pretty well guesstimate where I am on a map at any given point. Further, it is so much harder to triangulate yourself on a map that even if you do have some pretty good detail, you're not always gonna know exactly where you are. And so judging distances is still not gonna be that easy. For example, if I was lost right now and trying to look on a map to figure out where I was, simply knowing which direction was north or south wouldn't be terribly helpful. I don't really have any good landmarks around here to help triangulate myself on a map. The good news is I have a straight shot at the sky, and that means my GPS should be able to pinpoint my location regardless. Another factor to consider is your sense of direction. I think I have a pretty good one. Although I've definitely gotten turned around before, sometimes embarrassingly so, I've never actually been lost. In about 40 years of hiking, much of it solo, a lot of it just out in the boonies, I've never had any problem finding my way back. However, I also have been in a couple situations where I knew that I was pretty turned around, and if I hadn't had a really solid idea of what trail I was on or where I was in general, I wouldn't have known where I was and might not have been able to figure out how to get back to where I started. So for example, right now, I know that my car is right out there somewhere. However, climbing down off the side of this ridge, I know would be very difficult. In fact, I don't even know if it would be possible from here. So not only do I need to be aware of my destination, but I also have to have some idea how to get there safely. All right, this might be important. Old Stage Soap Route. Now I know this loop is actually a combination of several loops, so this will be a good time for a map check. Unfortunately, this trail is not on Gaia, so I don't know where this goes, but I'm gonna keep going this way. See, again, this is interesting. The GPS does not acknowledge the existence of the rest of this trail or of this trail. But it does seem that I'm supposed to be going this way, although again, I can't tell if I should be here or if I should just be right there. So, because the sign does seem to indicate a crossroads, and 6-bit is the trail that I'm supposed to take on the loop back, according to all trails, I'm gonna hang out on this one for a little while. One wayfinding tip that I like to try to keep in mind is that when you are hiking on trails and you're not 100% sure which one to go on, try to keep in mind what general direction you're going and what's going to keep you closest to another trail if you have to do cross country to find it. So for example, I know that I am basically circling the top of a big round ridge in a loop pattern, and that I am going in a generally clockwise direction. So if I ever come to a fork in the trail, if I stay to the right choice each time, that will keep me inside the clockwise loop. And then if it turns out to be a mistake, at least I haven't gone off loop and out into the wilderness somewhere. If I just keep on going, eventually I should run into the other trail or another trail, and I will still be in the same general area that I was trying to get into. As you can see, I have hiked into the fog, and I'm now descending the trail. This should be a fairly gentle trail the rest of the way back to the car, since I got most of the elevation change done at the beginning. The trail has also been extremely easy to follow. There were a couple of decisions to make, but none of them were that difficult. Another tip about walking around outside is to pay attention to land features. So for example, yeah, you can see it now. Right out there, you can see a dry creek bed. Well, if you remember, a few minutes ago, I crossed a creek. That put that bed on my left, going downhill this way. Now, if this trail were to peter out, or I got lost somehow, and I wasn't sure where I was, like let's say I wasn't on a trail here, but I was just walking through stuff like this, looking down there and keeping in mind that I still see that creek bed lets me know how to get back to that point on the bridge. So even if I didn't have this very obvious road and a silly cairn that somebody built, I know that because I'm walking on the downslope of this hill and I have the creek bed to my left, I'm oriented to where I'm going. Here's a good reason by having a map and a compass is necessary. So let's say my compass pointed this way and told me that my vehicle or other destination was right on the other side of this hill. Now that's a big hill. That's probably a good 20-30 minute climb right there, because I'm gonna have to go all the way down through this gully and then fight my way up to the top of this thing. So it might seem clear that I should either go around this way or around this way, which would be an easier route. But how do I know that right on the other side of that ridge there isn't a serious drop-off? I might spend 20 minutes climbing through all this stuff, trying to get over there, only to discover that there's no way around that hill. That's something that I could determine from a topographic map. Of course, what the topographic map does not tell me is that in order to do that, I would have to walk through this. However, if you have a fairly sophisticated GPS system with a satellite overlay, you can actually zoom in on an actual photograph of this area, and this might tell you whether or not it's going to be worth trying to get through all of this to the other side of that hill, or whether you should just pick another route. All right, it is about 1 o'clock and I am still skirting the bottom of this hill here. And this is a good example of other things that maps don't generally tell you. Knowing what I knew about this place, I never would have guessed that part of the trail would look like this, whereas the rest of it would be so rugged. Sometimes I've looked at topographic maps and said, I wonder why the trail goes that way instead of just from point A to point B in a straight line. Maybe there's only 1 or 2 contour lines between them, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal. The problem is contour lines can cover a lot. If a contour line is about 40 feet, you're going to completely miss this big dip, because from here to here, it doesn't count that rocky gorge. Rocky terrain with a lot of gullies and stuff like that often just doesn't show up on a topographic map unless it's a pretty huge feature. All right, this is a tough one. It's 1:15 think, on the GPS. Got all these sticks here that may be a water break, but they also might be indicating that people shouldn't go that way. So I'm going to continue down this trail, but keep in mind that there is a trail back there. Like, I can still see it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk, and then I'm going to look back at the GPS and see where I am. This feels right. Like, I don't feel like I'm going the wrong way, but the arrow was pointed a little bit off. Okay, here's something. GPS says I am off trail, okay? So if I was like in serious trouble here, what I would be more likely to do is just turn until I know that if I walked forward, I would hit the trail. But since this is kind of a simple little thing to do here, I'm going to give this a try. I know that that other trail is down there. Looks like I'm not the first person to have thought of this. I don't want to get too crazy here, but I know this trail has got to be right over here somewhere. I'm seeing something through the tree there. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. Ta-da! And there it is. According to the GPS, I am on trail, so I guess this is the way. Yeah, this is a confusing area to hike in. Trail, 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 creek-looking thing. Yeah, I gotta say, without the GPS, this trail would be pretty much a nightmare. That could be it. That could be it. This just leads to a fence, but the GPS says the trail's over here, so maybe it bends. It does. My gosh. What a strange place. I gotta tell you, honestly, I would not have chosen this route. Between those sticks, that tree fall, all these weird creek crossings, there were a lot of other trails that looked a lot more legit than this one. Which one is it? Let's just go to the gate. No, of course not. It continues. Time to fire up the GPS once again. Okay, according to this, I am supposed to bend away from the fence to the right, so that means I stay on Old Stage Trail. All right, so I am down on the left side of a hill. There's that. And I should be able to come around it all the way down to here. However, if I don't want to just backtrack all of this, when I get to this next big junction right here, I could go left, swing out, and take this one all the way back around, which seems a lot more interesting to me. So, again, kind of feel like it's to the left, but keeping with my strategy of staying on the inside of a loop, I'm going to try this first. And I'm off. Oh boy. Yeah, this trail would just be an absolute nightmare without the GPS. I don't even know where I would be right now. See, and this is another reason I don't feel super good about contour lines. See those? Look at that, 1, 2 contour lines. Maybe just, you know, a little bump in the road. No, it's that. So apparently the contour lines are like 200 feet apart right now. So I gotta say, this is a unique place. I've never been anywhere where you could get lost because there's too many trails. I mean, look at this. Just standing right here, I just came from another trail break that wasn't even on the GPS. I've got a little use trail here. I've got this trail here. Looks like a creek over there. An uphill to another trail, around trail to the same trail, this trail that I'm on. Remember earlier we were talking about not getting trail sick? Now I know that especially with you old school backpackers out there, of which I am one, map and a compass, absolute essential on any hike. However, I have come to embrace the GPS, and I do believe that it has some features and functions that actually give it a clear advantage to a compass and a map. There are some things that a map and compass are not going to help you with, and this trail should be a good example of one of them. There's the Red Hills Road rocks. So I must just be coming right up around the corner. Parking lot should be right over there. And that'll be the end of the hike. All right, well, I hope you have enjoyed coming along with me on this bizarrely intricate trail system in Red Hills, California, and that you maybe got some value out of some of my tips and thoughts about GPS versus maps. If you have, would you mind giving the video a like? And if you are into camping, hiking, backpacking, and the gear that goes with it, you can subscribe to Backcountry Pilgrim and click that bell if you want to be notified when new videos drop. Until next time, and even after that, I am Doug. Take it easy and thanks for watching.